Good morning here on the Central Riverhawks YouTube channel. I'm Joel McCall. We are stepping out of the bounds of athletics and talking about something that I am definitely not familiar with. But thankfully, my wife helped me out with some questions for today, as we have Jacob Klingbeil as well as Josh Beron. Mr. Klingbeil is the head of the marching band and just the band overall for Central. And then Josh Beron heads up the jazz band. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have a lot of questions. But certainly, first of all, thank you both for joining me this morning. Really do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about the band. First of all, the marching band, because it's kind of a busy time for you, Mr.
Yeah. Yeah. So this week, for instance, we have the homecoming parade and assembly this afternoon and the game tomorrow and all that. It's been a busy time, but it's fun.
What's your numbers like for this year for the marching band?
Oh, Mr. Barron, are we around 88, 89?
Yep, I think we're just shy of 90.
Gotcha.
So how do you handle 90 kids and doing practices? And what do you normally do for your practice schedule?
So during class in the day, we have just about 45 minutes on a Monday, Tuesday, or Friday, about 80 minutes on a Thursday, but we'll vary it up. It's a lot of like, okay, can we get this tuned down? Can we move on the field? Can we work on parade? Things like that. I know today, for instance, we're going to be doing a lot of pregame to halftime just to make sure we're ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the parade then. Is the band actually performing today then too?
Absolutely. So we're usually heading up that parade. So usually it's the police escort, then the band.
Okay, so you're right there, right in front.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Well, one thing that my wife wanted to make sure I mentioned was the range of instruments. So brass, woodwinds, and percussion. Thank you
Mhm.
for her notes for band. So tell me about the range of instruments.
Are you talking about like range in the sense of lowest, highest note, or just how many there are?
Yeah, pretty much how many there are, and yeah.
Okay. Mr. Barron, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, we've got every section's pretty strong. We've got a good solid clarinet section, our flutes, we've got a couple piccolos, screeching high notes as we're marching down. Yeah, good solid trumpet section. Our trombones have always been one of our bigger sections, I feel like. Two sousaphones holding down the fort. And then we've got our drum line who's been working since the summer, even during our summer camps, to really get all their stuff really nailed down.
Obviously, you two work together. So, Josh, what side are you kind of on and heading up besides the jazz band with just the marching band right now?
For marching band, it's we kind of team teach it. We'll kind of trade off who's doing what different things on different days. So we try and rotate it around to keep it different for the kids, so it's not the same person doing the same thing with them every single day. So
Yeah, it can get repetitive, I'm sure. Well, how about on the jazz band side? Because isn't there a specific instruments that you can and can't use for jazz band?
yes, technically, in jazz band, you usually have your three different types of saxophones: alto, tenor, and baritone sax. You'd have your trumpets, trombones, plus a bass trombone. And then you've got your standard rhythm section: piano, guitar, bass. But I always tell the kids, if you play an instrument, you can join jazz band. I have a clarinet player who is holding down the fort playing some trumpet parts. We're actually having a clarinet feature in our upcoming concert. So we actually get to feature him on his clarinet playing an actual clarinet part, which is nice for him. But I've had a couple flute players learn the saxophone over the summer, but they were also welcome to just play it on flute. So there are those traditional jazz instruments, but I always say the more the merrier.
That's pretty cool, that especially when you're talking about the versatility. You know, we talk about that in athletics all the time. Oh, if you play volleyball, you should play another sport, and you should play another sport in the spring. It's kind of neat the same way in band, where you're asking somebody to take an instrument that they may not be familiar with, and all of a sudden in the summer they're like, "Yeah, I can play that."
Yeah,
There
it's
are a
and
lot
it's
of similarity. Oh, sorry.
sorry, after they've learned their first instrument, it's not nearly as hard to pick up a second instrument for them because a lot of the things will carry over from instrument to instrument.
What were you going to say, Mr.
I
Klingbeil?
was going to say there are a lot of similarities between instruments. For instance, a flute player, a lot of the fingers that they need to know similar to saxophone. So, like what Mr. Beron said, once you start it, it's not as hard to go after another one.
Huh. Yeah, that again, I'm way out of my my range here. How about individual lessons? So we talked a little bit about practice. So, there's got to be more time for these kids to learn their instrument. So are you doing individual lessons with them?
So throughout the day, every student has an individual lesson for somewhere between 15-20 minutes, depending on when they get down here, things like that. But we're able to work on specifics on their instruments. So making sure like, oh, well, this is how you make a better sound. Or it can be like, do you have a question about this piece of music? So there's a variety even within that, but it really works on the individual skill.
How about you, Josh? Then are you kind of doing the same thing with individuals?
Yep, we both do lessons, and we kind of, again, we try and trade off students by semesters, so they're getting the different lesson teacher, because I might say things a little bit differently than Mr. Klingbeil, and it might click then, or he might say something different than I do, and it'll click for him. But yeah, it's a really important thing for the students, and I think they get that, because like we said, we've got almost 90 kids when we're in our rehearsals. It's difficult to point out that one student that needs a little bit of help with that one little thing. So those lessons are a chance to get that one-on-one support.
Now they're getting lessons from you. Do you know maybe a percentage roughly of how many would actually go out and do private lessons too?
Usually you have about a handful that do private lessons. For instance, we have a fantastic oboe teacher in the area, Mary Beth Hensel. Some of the students take private lessons from her just to advance on that. Some students in the past have taken bassoon lessons or trumpet lessons or clarinet lessons, anything like that. But it basically then becomes like, okay, we're on a team with them, their private teacher. How can we help with what's happening there, and then vice versa?
Yeah, I could understand that. They might do some things differently as far as
Mhm.
practice goes. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One thing that Dana had asked or wanted me to ask for sure was non-performance based things. What are they learning in class that's not playing music or learning music theory or genres of music?
So in class, a lot of times we talk about like the theory side of it. How does this go together? How do you figure out the scale if you know your starting note? So, for instance, a B flat major scale, it's built in the same way as every other major scale. So knowing what notes will probably happen there. We might talk about in the wind ensemble during the year how tuning happens, how we can make it adjusting to go between the just intonation or the equal temperament, which was that's getting terms I know, but that's systems that were developed in like the 1800s.
Oh
Actually,
wow.
even before that, it was the 1600s.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And so are you both doing that as well? Both teaching the stuff that's outside of actually learning the music?
Yeah. So once marching season ends in the fall, so mid-October is usually when that kind of wraps up. We split it into two different concert bands. So there's the wind ensemble, which I run, and there's the symphonic band, which Mr. Beron runs. In there we'll talk about these types of things. The students will have opportunities to do outside stuff, honor bands, things like that. Or even last weekend we went to the Badger game. No playing, we just went there to see what's going on and have a good time.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was wondering about that, how you would kind of decipher your own program, especially for marching band. What are they doing today and tomorrow as far as at the game? Is there a theme for this week?
So the biggest thing is, as far as themes go, we match what the school's doing. So like yesterday, I think was Barbie Day, which everyone was wearing pink or dressing up like Ken or something. Some of the kids really pulled it off. I was not able to because I did not own pink. So but there'll be dress up things like that. As far as today, there will be a lot of things to get really excited for that. for instance, this year our marching show is Pump It Up. So we chose tunes like Seven Nation Army that are designed to really get us going.
Okay, that's what I was meaning. Yeah, I meant for tomorrow night's performance then.
Mhm.
So you'll be performing at halftime. You also do the national anthem tomorrow night for football. On the jazz band side of things, Josh, you guys have a performance coming up in October, I saw, right?
Yes, it's something new that we're trying this year. We're doing a joint concert with the UW Lacrosse Jazz Orchestra. We're inviting them over. They're actually going to come over right after school, pretty much about 4 o'clock. And we're going to do a side-by-side rehearsal with their director. He's going to kind of give us some tips on our stuff. The kids are going to get a chance to hang out with the cool college students. And then we're going to give them a whole bunch of pizza, and we're going to have a 7 o'clock concert. So it should be a good time. It's the first time we're doing something like this where it's a jazz standalone concert. Usually we combine with other things. But the jazz program has been growing, so we're trying to get some more events for them to perform at, especially early on in the year. Typically, most of our stuff happens in the spring. Like last year, we had 3 performances in 2 weeks, and all of them were on weekends. So it was very condensed. But so we're trying to space things out this year and adding this concert. I think the kids are really excited for it.
How did that come about? Was that just something that you had reached out to somebody at UWL?
Yeah, I'm actually an alumni of UWL. I actually played in that jazz band, so I have obviously a connection with that director. So over the summer, I just had the idea. I emailed him, "Would you be interested in doing it?" It falls perfectly within their schedule because they have their own fall concert, I believe, just the week before.
Okay.
So they're going to bring their tunes that they would have played for that over to Central. So everything worked out pretty good.
Now I know for me growing up in Iowa, they also is actual band competitions. Then you go out and you perform against other schools and stuff like that. Is there opportunities for that here in Wisconsin for jazz band or the regular band or marching band or whoever?
There are opportunities for it, but we at Central don't really do a ton of that. There's some, but not much. And the biggest reason is we just want to educate the kids. We want them to grow, and sometimes that gets in the way a little bit.
That's understandable. Well, the last thing I have is social media and websites. Josh and I were talking about, Mr. Beron and I were talking about prior to coming on. I said last night, Dana and I looked at both websites. We were quite impressed. There's a lot of information out there. There's a schedules out there. You guys both have really nice websites. You can go ahead and plug them both as well.
The biggest thing is that is all credit to Mr. Beron. So I will let him talk about it.
Yeah, so we've kind of got 2 websites. We've got the primary band website, which is going to have a lot of our marching band stuff. That can be just found through the school website, through the school links. If you go to Central High School, and then I believe it's under classrooms, you should be able to find band. And yeah, we try and put as much information as we can out there for families in case they're not always checking their emails on stuff we're sending. So upcoming events, also just to keep the community updated if they're ever looking for things to do. And yeah, and then just this, again, last year, I got bored one day, so I decided to make a separate jazz website just because there's so much extra stuff with that. And that website you should be able to find if you just Google Central Jazz. It's hopefully the first thing that just pops up. It's a beautiful Google site. I love Google sites because it was so easy to create, super user friendly, and they make it look really nice.
They really are. And in fact, I'm going to put that in the description here on the YouTube channel as well. So if you go down a little bit farther than our video, it'll have both websites right there in the description. As I know, I've got to wrap things up with Mr. Beron and Mr. Klingbeil. I thank you guys so much for joining me today. Really appreciate the information that you could share. I know it's hard to talk about individuals when it comes to the band. So that's kind of the one thing that we didn't really get to. Maybe we could try that again a little bit later on, but good luck in your performances today. I know you have the homecoming parade later this afternoon. And then of course, tomorrow, I'm hoping that our microphone, the last time we were there at UWL and the marching band performed, Dana said that the national anthem sounded great. So I think on halftime tomorrow night, we're just going to be quiet, run our crowd mic, and hopefully they'll hear the band the whole time.
Let's hope.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, that's Jacob Klingbeil as well as Josh Beron heading the Central Bands. And we have play-by-play tonight of volleyball. That's on Alaska. We'll try to get there somewhere around 6 o'clock or so. You probably get a little bit of the VR match, but we'll certainly end with play-by-play of varsity. That's set to be at 7 p.m. There's all that homecoming stuff going on today too. So check out where the parade is down on Green Bay Street. And then, of course, football Friday night. We'll have that one for you as well with Toma and Central. I'm Joel McCall. Thank you so much for tuning in here on the Central Riverhawks YouTube channel.